Hey, welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. Today, our guest is AK Ikwuakor, or Coach AK. Now, me and AK go back to our Oregon days, and honestly, I've known him as a human. I've known him as a father. I've known him as a colleague. I've known him in so many different arenas. He's also a coach in our Speak to Freedom coaching program. He has spent time with Google and different companies across the world teaching coaching. He's run nonprofits internationally. The guy is a wealth of life experience and knowledge. And now he's an individual that speaks and does workshops for amazing companies, actually partners with some of them as well. And I tell you all that to give you this insight of what the episode's going to be about. We're going to unpack not just his concepts of what he does, but also him as a human behind the scenes. Mostly because you kind of got to get a feel of how somebody operates to understand how they can achieve what they have achieved. So when we unpack the discussion today, you're going to find some nuggets inside that are going to give you great information on how to move your life in the direction of being an amazing speaker or just an amazing human. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode. Hey, welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. We're here with a cool guest. This guy's someone I've known for years, man. And we work together in some cool capacities. But you already know, I just told you that in the intro. Welcome to the show, AK Ikwuakor. How you doing, man?
What up, Trucks? How you living, man?
I'm good. I'm just out here recording this on a Sunday. After this, we're going to go Costco shopping as a family. So that should be fun. Oh, here's a good one.
Chaos.
Yeah, it always is. I'm good in chaos, though. I just got to keep my head in a swivel and see what's going on. Cool thing though is we just finished the Speak to Freedom live event. First time, man. I realized I didn't tell you about it until you said like, "Hey, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't tell the entire team." So my bad, dog. But
was it in LA? What city was it?
No, we were up in California. We were in my neck of the woods.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I'm in Southern Cal, so it's still.
You could have made it up. You for sure could have made it up. You know what it was? I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. Like, it's like you create something with an intentionality of what it's going to be. And I wanted it to breathe life into itself a little bit. So, and I did find some nuances that did go off the rails of my plan in a great way. But now I got a good feel for what it is. And so next one, I'm going to have everybody come and hang. So you'll know about that. I think like the last week of January. Enough about me though, man. I want to dive into you, what you got going on kind of in the world. Here's where I usually start the episode. I want people at the forefront to begin this discussion to get an idea of why they should listen to you, so to speak. So if you wouldn't mind, can you give us an idea of like what you talk about and how you came to talk about that? We'll call it.
When I think about, we'll say the speaking world or the work that I'm in, I really break it down to what you're really selling is the business of you and your brand and what you bring to the table. And that's always evolving. That's always transitioning. And we could look at it similarly to a company or an organization. Right? When you're working in an organization, you're helping build up that brand. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes when you're building up that other person's brand, at some point, there can be some downsizing.
Yeah.
And all of that work can be lost when you no longer have access to that email account anymore.
Yeah.
But when you're building up on the business of self, that library stays with you forever. And so I believe that what I talk about is always transitioning. When it first started, I was working in the school system, talking about a lot of motivational talks, how to, really connect. But as I begin to grow and learn through this experience, a lot of the stuff I talk about right now is really working with leaders and teams about my book that I had on, taking that next right move, how to build consistency, clarity in your life to become the aligned person that you want to be. And I can talk about more about what that means. But overall, what I really do, I probably speak around 60 times a year. And that's everything from workshops to consulting to keynotes. But at the same time, I also work one-on-one with individuals to help leaders navigate ambiguity to really have clarity and consistency in their lives.
Gotcha. I like it. I had a thought. Sometimes the thoughts escape you. The thought escaped me. We'll just dive in a new question direction. I'm sure it'll pop back into my head at some point in time.
Yeah.
So 6 times a year, how do you kind of navigate that being in place and consistent, right? So some people go, I can't even get one or two.
Hmm.
How do we get to 60?
How do you get to 60? Is you have to be able to have people speaking about you
Mm.
when you're sleeping, when you're not in the room.
Yep.
And so I do that through three different ways. The first ways is through strategic partnerships. So I have a company, for example, called electives.io. They are a platform that connects experts with companies.
Hmm.
And lucky enough, I knew the founder when the company was first started. So
Yeah.
they're speaking on behalf of me when I'm sleeping.
Hmm.
Number two is I also have a team that is reaching out to companies and individuals on a daily basis.
Hmm.
And then three, I'm able to do that through, once again, how are people able to communicate when you're sleeping? Not that do I do a lot of videos. I do
Yeah.
put a lot of content out there.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people, they're expecting for everything to be perfect, when in reality, what you should be building to create a consistent speaking or even a company or a brand is how can you develop relationships, systems, processes, networks to be speaking on behalf of you when you are not in the room.
I like it. That's incredibly intelligent. That's the truth. The thing I just came back to me what it was your book. I actually read the entire book. I don't usually do that. People send me books a lot and they sit there. I open, you know what it was? I like how you chunked it up into very digestible segments. It was good for my brain. It was well done. So yeah, you guys get that book. Now, I like the idea of what you're talking to because it is. They got I like the language of it is beautiful. Tell you essentially something needs to be talking about you when you aren't there. And really what it boils down to is a good set of marketing, we'll call it systems in place. Because if you have none of those, like you could do phenomenal at one of your workshops, one of your speeches. Someone could easily just, that guy's amazing. That doesn't get you the next gig typically. There's some carryover, maybe there's some testimonial, but they're not out there hustling for you to get you booked. Where did you find this need? Like, because not everybody jumps in the industry and thinks about that. Most people in the beginning go, I want to focus on my skill set. I want to be good on stage. I want to make sure I get my message down. Their first thought isn't, I have to make sure that something's talking about me when I'm not in the room. So was there a time at which you had this aha moment of like, gosh, I got to start doing this? Or did somebody give you some insights? How did that kind of come to be?
It's always it's always a transition. I mean, I've been in the same situation when I first start, and I wish that when I first started, somebody told me, "It's like, AK, don't worry about like the stage as much," because the funny thing is about the stage, I became better at the stage when in reality I stopped focusing so much on the stage.
Hmm.
It was I started with Toastmasters. I'm not going to bash Toastmasters, but they taught me a formulaic approach.
Hmm.
But when I really started to grow in my speaking is when I was able to just have a conversation on stage and
Yeah.
even add in some of those elements of just who I am.
Yep.
And I'd say most of the talks that I do, 40% of it, 50% of it is improv. Is I'm
Hmm.
interacting with the people on the stage,
Same
people in
thing.
the audience, and I will even use a story of which I just maybe met somebody in the bathroom and we had a conversation. I will
Yeah.
incorporate that into my talk. So I had to learn the art of not, how do I say, finding the best stories, but the art of telling a
I
story.
get it. Yeah.
And when I learned the art of how to tell a story, it doesn't matter if I'm talking about my morning or the most impactful experience I've ever had. It gives me an unlimited library to
Yeah.
choose from because I know how to be present with that audience, all while being myself. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of us forget in the speaking world, that actually your secret sauce is your authenticity. And the higher you go, they realize a canned speech. They
Mhm.
realize if you're
Yeah.
just trying to be something, and any moment of inauthenticity
Mhm.
only loses and hurts your overall credibility.
Yeah, it can be instantaneous. It could be a way that you have to like you turn like your nonverbals will tell it. Like, it's very. I know what you're talking about. I'm the same as you. Like I actually tell people on stage, I go, hey, listen, about 70% of what I'm about to say, I have no idea I'm about to say it. It's just I know where we're going, but we're gonna have a conversation. Let's rock.
Sometimes I
And
don't
they
even know where we're going.
yeah, I don't. I just start talking every day. Here's where I learned that. I'd love to know where you learned it. I started doing a video a day. Like we actually are about to I think on Monday it's 1,016 straight weekday videos. Prior to this whole set was another 1,333 straight days of a 90-second video. So I just got used to, like you're saying, talking, telling stories and randomly doing it. People go, what's the trick in you do it a lot. That's that's the trick. And you listen to people, you take feedback. But how did you kind of learn that skill of storytelling and speaking extemporaneously?
Well, I got into public speaking because I was first afraid of public speaking. I have
Okay.
extreme levels of ADHD. You'll probably find that out at some point. But in
Hmm.
addition to being dyslexic, so it's always been hard for me to, one, memorize,
Yeah.
read off a teleprompter. But I remember the specific. It was in 2013, and I was working at a boarding school called Phillips Exeter Academy.
Mhm.
And actually, we were doing some work at just time as well with a company called Empower to Play, and they wanted
Yeah.
me to come in and talk about that experience. But I wanted to talk about fear and this moment. And I thought, like, instead of talking about fear, I want to show them what fear is in real time. And the funny thing about this is that I would always write my speeches word for word. And I'd even add in the ums and ahs just to make it feel like it
Whoa,
was off the cuff.
that's crazy.
So, but for this one, I said, no, I'm going to actually go in and do fear. And it was a 40-minute talk in front of 1,000 of my peers talking about my expertise.
Hmm.
And I said, no, I'm going to free flow this from start to finish. From start to finish. I'm going to show you fear in real time. And I remember I was sitting down on the stage and my knees were just like, I was kind of shaking right before they were doing my intro, about to bring me on the stage. And I was like, I haven't prepared anything. And in that moment, I just said, just be present in that moment.
Hmm.
And then they called me up and get on the stage. And for 40 minutes, I just flowed. I just trusted. So much present, I think Siri went off on someone's phone and I
Yeah.
had a conversation with Siri. Like, okay,
There you
I guess
go. Yeah,
that
it's
is,
just
but
happening.
it caught me in that moment is my number one way is just trust. It is understanding that when I'm the most present in that moment, it is bringing the most current version of myself, not my last week self, not my 1 month self, not my year self. Is like, I'm bringing you the most authentic version of myself. And what needs to be said in this moment is energetically what I feel or something saying
Yeah.
that needs to be said. And so I
Yeah.
can't explain it, but when you actually have that trust within self, it creates this moment of just a lot of power and vulnerability, but also truth.
Yeah. Yep. I know what you mean. Because there's moments where you'll have something the tip of your tongue, and you know it's something you maybe have never said to anybody, and then your brain is processing as you're still talking to these people. Do I tell them this? And you go, And I've actually been in moments where I'll go like, I'll have a conversation and go, I don't know if we should. Let's go there. And like, so they see me processing, and then I dive into it, and it's usually so much more raw. But you actually connect with people vastly better. Now, here's the one thing that I found for myself personally with doing this is I have gotten myself in trouble. uh, not in a bad way, but I've had HR come to the side and go, "Hey, just you can't say that up on stage for us." I was like, "Oh, my bad." Now, nobody was like mad. I wasn't, like being, I guess punished, but they're just like, hey, you got to be aware. These kind of people may be in the audience, like, "Oh, okay, it's good." Have you ever found yourself playing with the edges of that, like the boundaries of in trouble, not in trouble, or allowing yourself to go to that place that you haven't been before?
I would say in the speaking world, I'm being real about it, is usually situations regarding race
Yeah.
conversations.
Mhm.
And oftentimes when I'm on stage, I'm usually on stages with a lot of people that may not look like me in the audience. And oftentimes I might be in these conversations where people might expect for me to hold a particular view
Mhm.
or act a certain way. But I got to be
Yeah.
honest, I grew up in Arvada, Colorado, in the most
Mhm.
suburbs of the suburbs. And sometimes I'd be brought into a situation because there's some turmoil happening in the company. And they want me to go up there as, I would say it, as a black male and almost reprimand in some type of way.
Mm.
And what I would oftentimes do is like identify as, well, what happens if I don't believe in that particular belief system? And so a lot of it is what I talk about is a lot about perception. Right? We talk about brands. Brand is the message you have out into the world.
Mhm.
Reputation is what other people say about you. But perception, I think, is the most important. Is when you walk into a room, people are already going to be perceiving things about you
Mhm.
from their own experiences. and crafting a narrative that either aligns or doesn't align with the vision of what they expect from you. And so, yeah, for me, oftentimes I might go in and they might expect, oh, he's a 6'4", 245-pound athlete. Then he must think and act this way.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it might be true, it might not. Like, and I'm probably like, what are some specific examples? Maybe politically, I'm much more moderate. I'm actually fiscally more conservative. I'm more independent. I am a business owner. I'm not necessarily on the where we consider political spectrum of like, Democrat or Republican. I'm actually consider all of that kind of trash.
Yeah,
but
I get you.
For me personally, is there's a lot of expectations that people have of me and belief systems that I may not align with. Like I grew up as a kid that was picked on because of the color of my skin. So a lot of people might expect that, well, they'd expect me to have negative views of people.
Yeah, harbor anger, revenge.
Anger.
Yeah.
And I don't harbor anger because I believe it's through my pain and through that experience that actually made me realize like because I was judged so much growing up, I don't want to judge anybody else because I know how that felt for me personally. Right. So I have a lot of empathy in the work that I do, the work that we did even with Empower to Play, is realizing that we all have our own individual story. We all have our own individual path that we've taken. So when people go into an audience and kind of bring this all together, there's so many layers to each and every single one of us. And my goal is I want you to just be free to be you.
Yeah.
I want to be free to be me, you be free to be you. And I think all of us, we put ourselves into these little boxes and it actually creates more separation than actually connection.
I'd agree, man. It's interesting that there's this kind of way that I've noticed as I've interacted with more and more people, because I operate the same. There are some things that are stigmatic of how I look and how I may carry myself or what I used to do that they assume it's how I am, right? It's one piece of it. But then as I do get older, I have I'm probably more conservative too in terms of my views and how I want to live my life. But here's the interesting thing. And I don't know if this is the one that everybody carries, but I think it may be beneficial. You let me know from your perspective. I go, the existence of my belief is not an active attack on yours. That's all it is. Like I have a way of thinking. I have my own perspectives, but I'm not against yours. I wouldn't even try to convince you of mine. I'm just going to tell you why I do what I do, right? And it's interesting because you do live in this space where, because you have this perspective or this view, someone go, what are you trying to say that I don't? No, I didn't say anything about you, man. I just said I like burritos. Trying to say I should like burritos too? I don't care about your burrito desire. I know I don't, like that may be the conversation. And I can see how that mentality trickles in. So when you are on stage, you do make a mention of something that's a little bit off kilter. Someone can take it as an outright attack, even though it's just the existence of your belief, right? Do you ever find yourself having funny conversations afterwards for people misconstruing your words?
Yeah. And when they misconstrue my words or anybody's words, it's more of a conversation. And usually when they misconstrue the words, I often go down to is the why of that. Well, what's your experience for why you believe that? For me, I talk a lot about this freedom and independence, or what I use this word called unbranded. Like I hate to be told what to do. I hate to be in systems. But when you understand the why behind that, is I'm a triplet. I have a twin brother and I have a twin sister. Meaning my whole entire life, people were saying, you're like your brother. Like, no, we are our own individual people. Yeah. And so when people are like, if you understood the story of I've always been put into a box with the same clothes and being the same person, I've now gone on the opposite side. No, I want to be my own person. See my brother as who he is, see me who I am. But at the same time, you might work at the same company. You might have a same title, maybe even in the same family, but it doesn't make you the exact same person. And so I think the often question that we go to is we try to call out or say, this is who you are, but we never ask the more important question is, but why do you believe this? What's your experience in your life that caused you to think this way?
It's true. We all have those reasons. I mean, everybody has it. And usually they're completely different, nuanced. That's why over the years, I've come to find that my idea of trying to get someone to be convinced of mine or try to make sense of theirs, even my wife and my kids, they live with me, right? I've never had their complete exact life experiences. Therefore, the way they're
Yeah.
processing, I don't get it. So I go,
Hmm.
all right. Like, I don't even argue with people sometimes anymore. I'm like, I don't even know if it's going to make sense. I mean, there's certain things, obviously, but at a certain point, I go, I just, we're different. But the thing is, that's the beauty of it all. That's what's cool. Like, if
Hmm.
everybody was the same as me, man, it'd be super annoying. So the fact that I can have different discussions, different ideas, but I'm open to it. Like, I'm okay with entertaining an idea without accepting it as truth. I'll just sit there and
Hmm.
listen. Like, what if you run down rabbit holes and you can go, okay, I can come back from rabbit hole. And that's kind of a gift if you can do it, I think, to an extent, but maybe it's a curse. I don't know. I haven't tried doing anything different at this point for a long time. So I go, I just, it causes too much like strife when I'm trying to figure it out. And no, you gotta. And then I'm just the guy yelling in the car for no
But,
reason. Uh,
but even think about it, Anthony. It's, we've done a lot of traveling.
yeah.
We've been to a lot of places, but there is what 7.6 billion people on this planet,
Hmm.
and most likely we're only going to interact with 0.001%.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician, but that's like still like maybe even 0.0001%, 760,000 people.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we're saying like, I understand the world. I'm like, you've only experienced 0.0001%
Hmm.
of the overall population. The fact that we're even having this conversation in English
Hmm.
when most people in the world do not speak English
Yeah.
almost shows that we actually do have a limited view on the world. And oftentimes you might meet people that have never left their hometown, but are making decisions based on other locations. And what you realize is, I believe that's why traveling is so important. Getting outside of your comfort zone is so
I
important
agree.
because it actually helps you understand is like maybe the world doesn't actually revolve around me. Maybe the
Yeah.
systems that I'm in might in fact be wrong.
Yeah. Or it can be improved. And it's not words that you can be like when I travel. It's like you experience and see and you feel something that I can't put words to make sense for. Like when you're in another country and you see somebody walking and the way that they're walking or what they're walking with, the clothes they're wearing, the way people cross the street or don't cross the street, the way the streets are designed, like these little things that are so nuanced that it just starts popping into your brain this full experience that it's like I can't put that into words to give to you to make it make sense. But you're right, unless you go out there and feel that, it is what and then I think it gives me a sense of freedom too in doing that. I go, "Oh, so the problem I have, it ain't that big." Like it's gonna be okay. Like I'll survive today and then I'll be up tomorrow and then no one's gonna care just like nobody cared today, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It's kind of a diabolical little dance. Hey, I know you're taking a quick break from the Speak to Freedom episode with Coach AK, but I want to come here and ask this question. Do you see yourself at some point in time as a speaker making 6 or 7 figures doing so? If part of your heart, part of your idea says, I want to do that or do like Coach AK or myself does, I want to invite you to check out what we do. Go to speaktofreedom.com. In this space, you'll see how I've built a company that's not just focused on getting great on stage, but getting great at getting onto stage. Coaching, live events, a system you can plug into your business to allow you to systematically and reliably grow not just your stages, but also your on-stage skill sets. So you can make amazing impact, amazing income, and be of amazing influence to the world. So go to speaktofreedom.com and find out how that all impacts. All right, let's get back into the episode. I want to know this, and I don't know if anybody who's listening may be curious as well. What was the thing? So you got into speaking because you desired, and I'm not going to take us off this track, but I'm realizing there's a wealth of information, knowledge you've experienced because of what you've done as a speaker, how it's brought you
Mhm.
around the world quite literally to do your work as
Yeah.
far as China and even beyond, right? So you've done all this because of your gift and your skill you've got. What was the thing that made you go, this is what I want to do full time? Because you've had an interesting journey. Yeah, I've actually admired the way you've kicked yourself out into the world and like, I'm gonna do something crazy. Because the Empower to Play was your idea to go to an embassy to go teach football in foreign countries. And I'm like, I was at home trying to figure out how can I get someone to lose 15 pounds? And you're like, how do I get this kid in another country? I'm like, this is dope. But how did that come to be? Because it's one thing to go, I'm scared of this stuff. A whole other thing to go like, this is what I'm going to, kind of hang my hat on and do till I retire.
I'm still, I don't know, maybe in shock. I'm still thinking about, oh, this is what you do for a living.
Hmm.
I don't know if it still hit me and I do talks consistently. I feel even with Empower to Play and a lot of the stuff that we've done is I'll equate it to the thought to action ratio. Is a thought comes, and we all get thoughts of stuff that we want to do, but that thought that turns into an action.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say most of the time, that thought to action ratio, I probably say no 60 to 70% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But some people say no 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was, hey, I have this idea. Let me just see what happens. It wasn't a formulaic process, but something happened. And like every single moment when I decide that thought to action ratio, it's like, thought I should do something. Well, what's the action I should take? And actually, the less I think about it, the more it gets done.
I agree.
Just like if I'm going to go into the refrigerator, if I say, hey, I open that refrigerator and I see that box of donuts, the longer I keep that door open, it's not decreasing the chances of me eating those donuts. It is, in fact, increasing it. And so the faster that I can be like, no, don't eat it, and shut the door, or the faster that I can say, send that email, or the faster I can pick up the phone and call that friend that needs something, the faster things will come. But I feel what happens with a lot of people is their thought to action ratio is getting wider and wider and wider, so wide that they end up saying, you know what? I didn't want to start that company anyway. Oh, I didn't want to reach out anyway. Then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy where they're actually creating a habit of inaction.
Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's a quote I heard, that guy that does a podcast, something, Chris something anyways, and he was recounting someone else saying something. I like to give credit to people that I hear things from and not as my original idea. So I'm trying to figure out where I heard it. But he says, not enough people weigh the cost of inaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's an inaction. And the thing is, the inaction might be that I didn't get the workout. It might be that I didn't take the next step and opportunity. But it's true. Like there's so many conversations. I was just having a talk with my wife last night about the next step of what we're doing for dark work and the guy that I got to be. Because I'm a happy guy. I'm a joyous dude. But, when we meet with the helmet on, it's a different character. And that character is what built my life. Because that's the guy that had to pull out when it was like, having to step forward and get on the stage, push the business forward, navigate hard conversations, people burning me like, the guy has to come out. And I go, but the world doesn't usually see him. He's behind the scenes making sure this guy can come forward. And I'm not two-faced per se. It's just that I don't bring that aggression to the forefront of the world. And having a talk with her, and I go, what's interesting is that guy, when he's, when I'm sitting here and I look at someone who needs something, I have a sense of like compassion for a certain position. I go, God, it's got to suck to be there. And like, I feel for that. And the other guy goes, but they got what they worked for. They got what they sacrificed for. And this guy, he may have to come out for dark work. I'm gonna name him Truck Stop. He's gonna come out and do his thing. Not that I'm gonna put it, but there's like a certain sense of like, if I baby your passiveness, or I baby the part of you that goes, it was so hard, didn't it make sense? I go, yeah, but in the beginning of our days, all of us in elementary school, we're told, hey, if you eat healthy and work out and you prepare, you can be good at sports. You may get this scholarship and do this. A lot of us say if you study hard and take care of things, you can get a good grade. And then some people didn't do that. Some people did. And those who did do that, they have something. But the people who didn't do that, they bag on those who did, or they want to take what is from those who did, right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying all that to go, these thoughts and ideas of a whole bunch of different areas have popped into people's heads. And like you're right, 99% of people, they don't weigh the cost of an action, and they just go, they move along. Whereas you go, I'm gonna take that one, I'm gonna run with it. And you do get the fruits of the labor for doing that. You do get to have this, cool thing. And it isn't always easy, but I think even the fact that it's not easy and how hard it is, that makes me even more uncomfortable when people sit back and go, oh, it's just because, you played the NFL. Okay. All right. Well, just,
You just woke up one day and be like, you know what? Let me just do this thing.
Yeah. It's like, well, dude, it was hard to get in the NFL. First, second, I wasn't a name. I was a dude on the roster for a little bit, like just a guy that people in the NFL probably didn't know existed. It ain't like, it's all these little nuances. And so I'm kind of going a little rabbit hole here, but I like what you're saying here.
Well, I would say to you, Anthony, one of the stories that we had in 2013 was, I remember we were in the Philippines and having a conversation, and you said, I'm going to do a video every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I think I said to Anthony, like, hey, you don't need to. Like, even if you do it like once or twice a week, it's still going to be valuable. But you said, no, I'm gonna do a video every single day. And that was in 2013.
Yeah.
And what you've been able to do since then is you have stayed consistent and done a video every day, even do sometimes multiple videos a day.
Yeah.
And this goes to a study that was done, and there was a study that was done that identified that 9% of people that set a goal on day one are able to achieve it a year later. 9%. But even bigger stat is that 46% is only able to last 1 month, and 23% are able to last 1 week, meaning they have an idea, and within a week, they're like, what was that thing that I said I was going to do? Mm-hmm. But I want to know what percentage of people set a goal on day one and 12 years later are still staying consistent. Yeah. Right? So it's just something that you do. But even the fact that I was talking about like finishing the book, it's not about always having the most innovative idea or the best idea. It's just how do we stay consistent, right? And what you've done is you've been able to stay consistent longer than anybody that I have ever seen in doing something when they set their sights out for something, like the integrity with self. So I think we're having this conversation, but I'm wondering to you is like, what do you think allows you to stay so consistent day after day, year after year? We're about to go decade after decade.
You can't, right? I think there's just two things. It's a simple two, dude. The first one is I find a way to streamline the friction. So I think whenever some people start something new, they find friction and they go, oh, that's just what it is. I just have to keep pushing through, and willpower becomes the thing. And I go, well, there's willpower. Yes. But what if I systemize it? That's a big piece. So I look at what's caused me friction. So if it's like, hey, what are my topics going to be? So I'd say, okay, well, if I carve out 30 minutes and write the topics for the month, that streamlines that friction, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give myself 30 minutes or an hour, start writing stuff down. So just do that. And then that would give me the clarity for that, right? So just a little systematic, or like, how can I record this, get it edited in the fastest way possible? So it's not 30 minutes each time, but 10. And I can get it filmed. At the time, I could do the 90-second one, filmed, edited, and posted in 7 different locations in under 10 minutes. And it started like 30 and 45, right? Yeah. So little by little, I just kind of refine it. So now what happens is it doesn't take as much of a mental load. And the more you do it, actually, your brain gets like riding a bike. It's hard in the beginning. Eventually, your brain just does like second nature. Yeah. The other part of it, even though it's simple, there are 1,000% times that I don't want to do it. I'm talking, I would venture to say 30 to 40% of the time, I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you add that up over a year's time, it's multiple months. I'm doing something every day that I'm like, I don't feel like doing this right now. But here's the thing. In the time of doing it, it becomes who you are to do it. Yeah. And then there's an alignment issue. Like if I say, I'm a good dad, I'm a good husband, the situation that occurs where I would be a bad husband or a bad dad, like I operate different to stay in alignment with being a good dad or husband. And even if I don't feel like doing it, that's who I am. I'm going to show up this way. I'm going to do this thing, whatever, maybe uncomfortable. It's fine. I'll do it because it keeps me in alignment with who I am. And so at this point, I'm the guy that does that. It's like kind of like people know me to do it. So it's like, all right, that's who I am. And it's not a difficulty thing. At this point, it feels as easy emotionally as a day-to-day basis as it did in 2013, right? 2013 up to here, there's some shifting and some adjustments, but there's an emotional flow I was in when I wasn't doing it, where it would drain my emotions, that feels the exact same, if not lighter now, while still doing it. Yeah. And that for me is a secret of consistency. I just figure out how to flow to, I'm not looking at every day battling it. I'm looking at every day to assimilate it into my natural new normal. Then it rolls. So it's not even problematic after a while. And there's benefits on the backside too.
Well, to that, Anthony, I mean, as we bring this back to the speaking conversation, I did some work at Google for 3 years. I helped build out their sales and executive coaching program. And they needed a speaker to come in to really, give their team some tools and some motivation and just some insights. But because of your consistency, all I had to do was like, hey, here's Anthony Trucks. Vouch for the guy. But what they were able to see is, oh, this guy is a speaker. Because you had the assets when the assets were needed. They didn't question whether or not you can motivate a stage or impact an audience. So what you actually did for Google was you helped them reduce resistance and friction. You made it easy for Chris to say yes, because at the end of the day, Chris could say, I have a guy that I know that's going to do a good job. So when people are becoming the early speakers, like, you weren't actually speaking on behalf of Google necessarily. And the reason I say that is you were speaking on behalf of Chris, because if you went in and you poo-pooed the bed, that made Chris look bad.
Yeah.
And so a lot of speakers, when they're coming in, they're like, we don't have any assets. We don't have any videos. Well, if you're coming in to speak, you're basically saying for that meeting organizer, that person, to take a risk on you.
Yeah. For their career.
And if you don't have that, you're going to leave the next day while they still got to meet with their colleagues and their peers to say, what was that monstrosity that you bought in that now they have to kind of pick up the pieces for, where you're on the flight home, gotten your paycheck and, living your life.
Yep. Dude, it's such a truth. I'm glad you brought that up, because many people don't think about that when they're thinking about speaking. And I learned that when I was doing some consulting for PG&E way early on. This guy named Tim McLean. And I remember having this thing where like I did my presentation, everything, and it went well. And he was elated. Like he came in cloud nine, bro, did a good job. And I'm like, why are you so happy about this? And then I came to find like, oh, it's because it made him look amazing. He got a promotion to go to this whole new level of super gas ops, and it was good for his family. I'm like, oh, that's really what I'm doing out here. Because at the end of the day, you represent the person that brought you in. And so I've always said my job's to make you look good. In the process, I'm going to look good, which is good, And then if I do that, then you're going to talk about me to somebody else. My name gets out there so my business can even grow. Yeah. But you're right. A lot of people go in there and they're worried about, okay, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to look bad. I don't want to do this. It ain't about you, man.
Like, not about you at all.
It's like it in some stretches, obviously it is. But you're really out there realizing that somebody has their neck on the line to make sure you look the part. And if you do right, have the assets, you've done the time of investing in the brand and the marketing, like we talked about when we started the conversation, you are more of a safe bet. But most people are going, let me practice behind the scenes in front of my mirror. And when I feel like I'm ready, then I'll go out on stage. It's like, nah, the whole world's stage right now. In order to get in that stage, you got to start letting the world know you exist. And you're going to have some clunkiness. But the person that finds you in 6 months, is it 6 months of you doing nothing, or 6 months of you every single day doing something to refine the skill set and the message to where you, when they ask you about it, I got this locked in, and you can just flow with it. And then it's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. It moves smooth. You get 60 speeches a year and you're like, oh yeah, I haven't even realized it's my career just yet.
I just get called. What are you doing? Because it's a conversation. And it's coming to the point right now for me where they're not asking for my talk. They're like, hey, AK, we have this event. What do you want to talk about? And I can design anything because they're coming up to me because they trust me. They have an audience, and it's like, just create something that that's going to work. We trust you.
Yeah. And
most of the time, we in some of the Speak to Freedom group is when someone says yes to you, they're not saying yes to your whole speech. They're not going to see that. They're not going to see your whole speech until you actually deliver it. What they're really saying yes to is the concept of your speech. What's the key objective? So what I do is say, hey, I sell what the concept is, and then I'll have like 3 months to actually build it. And they won't actually see it until the actual day. So I says, stop worrying about making everything so perfect. They just want to know, one, do we trust you? Are you going to make me look? Are you going to embarrass me? Like, cool, check. And that's why I would say one of the most important things is why you got to build the brand. Like, if they asked, do you think if Tom Brady said he wants to speak at an event, how many companies do you think would say yes?
A lot.
Yeah. But wait. What is he going to talk about?
He's Tom Brady, man. He got brought into like an airline as like one of the chief team building officers. I'm like, that dude has no experience. I'm like, wait, he's led multiple teams. Whatever comes out of his mouth is going to be what they haven't heard, Yeah. So they're fine with it.
So I say that brand is extremely important. You build up the brand, then it's going to help you get more opportunities. And they're going to say, like, what do you want to talk about? Like, I don't care. Just, we trust you.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you need both. You need that brand, but you also need that content. And so a lot of people, like what you've done consistently, whether that's NFL, whether that's, what I look at your brand is Anthony's just a dynamic dude. He's worked in business. He's done American Ninja Warrior. He's done, speaking around the globe, multiple businesses. What you've really built, I think your biggest brand that I see is trust, right? It doesn't matter what you put Anthony Trucks into. He's going to deliver, right? That's what I do. Like, I just know that all I got to do is give him your name. I'll fall asleep and you're going to make me look good. So thank you.
Yeah, it's going to happen right. Yeah. It has to be done that way. Yeah, I get you.
You make people look good. And I think that's what we need to really think about in that speaking world. You can't think about yourself in this. It is about the people you're working for, the audience that you're working for, because if your audience becomes successful, if the meeting organizer becomes successful, then you will be successful. But if you only focus on your own success and everybody else around you isn't getting the results that they're looking for, it's going to be a very, very short-lived career. So why do I say this? I would actually say for me to get more speaking engagements wasn't necessarily just about me being good on stage. It was me actually working with some of the meeting organizers and helping them sometimes through personal challenges that they were going through, helping build other people's companies. So when it came down to it, it wasn't what was happening on stage. A lot of it was happening behind the scenes when I wasn't getting $1.
Yeah. That's how it is. 100%. I tell people you got to give the effort to be great before you know you will be great. That's it. Those who are willing to do that, they're the ones that win it in the long run. It's the ones that are seeking the what you have now without having done the work. Those are the ones that it's tough, man. Bro, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's been a blast. It always is, though, because you're a very intelligent, worldly human who cares and has a good grasp of, in my opinion, humanity. You've been in so many places. There's no way you can do what you've done and not. You know what I mean? Those who are out here just getting introduced to you, where can I send them to find out more about you?
Yeah. So the work that I'm doing that I've really been excited about is I got into the software world, but not even just the software world. It's a company called LeadLift, where we are really creating, we'll say, a coach at the palm of your hand. And there's been a lot of data and research that we've been putting together that has realized, especially in the corporate space, we talk a lot about work-life balance. We talk a lot about, people that are bringing work home. But through the research and through the data, we've actually seen that 43% of individuals of the challenges that are happening in the workplace are actually non-work related. It's actually stuff that's happening outside of work.
Interesting.
Right? And so, but the workplace is basically saying, we don't want to see it. We don't want to hear it. And so what we've actually done is we put data to this, and we've actually been focusing on my work right now is called work-life integration.
Gotcha.
Is you can, in fact, have successful relationships, a successful career, and also have a strong personal well-being. And we have data and information to actually show this is the case. So if they want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to coachak.com. You can look at LeadLift. But our goal is we want to have 1 million people by 2030 achieve work-life integration. Meaning having successful careers, successful relationships, and lastly, being able to really have a positive well-being.
I dig it, man. It's a need too, because everybody has to work. If you're going to do that work, it might be good to enjoy it, enjoy all the holistic base around it too. Man, I appreciate it. I thoroughly thank you for coming on. Also being present the way you are, same as you give me that edification. Same for you, man. You're obviously a coach in the program, which is it's a blessing to have you and the amazing people we have. But I don't worry. I know you're going to show up and do a good job, and you always have and always will. So, man, as a human to human, I appreciate you. As a friend, I appreciate you. And I look forward to actually seeing you in a couple of days, I believe, down here in LA when I go down there. Yeah, man. That's it, everybody. You guys are tuned in. Thank you so much for hanging out. Go check out Coach AK, coachak.com, him on LinkedIn, all the same stuff. You'll see the links all spread to the body of this. But yeah, here's what I'll tell you. Take one thing from this. I don't know what thing you'll take, but if you have an aspiration to be a speaker, take one piece, apply it. It could be you looking at building the brand out better. Like what's the thing you have to do and communicate to improve people's awareness of you, or maybe your skill set, whatever it is, just try something. It's the person who takes information and rapidly translates it to action that has success in the long run. So that's it. Thank you again, AK. Thank you again, person tuning in. And I will see you guys next time on the Speak to Freedom podcast. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Speak to Freedom podcast. I hope you found our discussion inspiring and informative. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on all our future releases, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, remember to speak with confidence and clarity so you can one day soon speak to freedom. See you in the next episode.